And we are in. We are live. Are the volumes right? Yeah, I think so. Had an issue like 5 minutes before the stream for the music I use in the background, because I use a service that is called YouTube No Cookies that allows me to play a video in the background for the music, and OBS has a thing that when you play a page, you cannot access the page you are accessing. So for a video, for example, if you get a message like accept the cookies, you cannot really play the video. Well, it's like a technical thing that is super annoying, but luckily there is a service that allows you to skip that issue. But today it wasn't working. Like 5 minutes before I wanted to start, it wasn't working, so I had to improvise. I very quickly asked ChatGPT and I finally found another service. Well, like problems of the streamers. Okay, so yeah, I think that volumes are right, and I would like to focus today's stream to DataViews and DataForm, which are like really powerful components provided by WordPress that they are actually used in the UI of WordPress. For example, in the templates, let me show you. If we go to, for example, if we go to a playground instance, there are some sections, and I think there will be more in time. For example, if we come here, pages, so this is a DataViews component. And also if we go to templates, this is another DataViews page. So this is the DataViews component. So the way these things work in WordPress development, like the development of the product, is that the team developing the core of development of WordPress, they create like little tools that can be used or with the use of those components inside WordPress core in mind, but also they are available for any plugin developer to use them in their project. So this component that is used in WordPress core, you can actually use them in your plugins, in your own projects. And this is really cool because any type of list or table you need to provide to the users of your plugin, you can use this component. And as you can see, we have different views. All of this is provided by the components. And also there's a combo actually in these components that we have on one side a component to display the data, and on the other hand we have a component to edit the data. I'm not sure if here, I'm pretty sure that let me see if I go to posts. I think this is an example of the other component of the DataForm component. So what I want to do today is to explore this a little bit. And I'm actually working on a set of examples. So I want to continue working on this live, and while we are working on this, I can comment things and I can one of the things I would like to talk about is the latest updates on these components. So there's some work that has been done for these components during the WordPress 6.9 cycle, but those enhancements are already available, so we don't need to wait until WordPress 6.9 is released, because these components are available through an npm package. So we can go, actually, if we go to npm JS, we can see this component here. We can install it, and then we can use it in our projects. I'm going to share this in the chat. So where do we start? I think that a good place to start is by reviewing the documentation. That's always a good place to start. So we can review the documentation from here or from the block editor handbook, which is what I'm going to do. If we go to reference guides, we go to package, in DataViews, what is this here? DataViews. So we are going to review the documentation a little bit. Then I think in the documentation there are already some of the latest updates of the components, so maybe we can comment that while we review the docs, and then we can see some examples of how these things are actually used. So let's start with the documentation. The DataViews package offers 2 React components and a few utilities to work with a list of data. So DataViews to render the dataset using different types of layouts, table, grid, list. So as we mentioned, this, if we go to appearance, themes, if we go to appearance editor, templates, we have, I'm going to put this in another window, table, grid, list. So we have table, this is the table view, this is the grid view, and this is the list view. The list view is meant to be used as a sidebar, so whenever you click an element on the right side, the actual component is loaded. So we have these 3 layouts we can use with a list of data. Nice. How do we install this package? Well, like any other npm package, we do npm install, WordPress DataViews, and save. So in the documentation, it points to the Storybook, where there are actually a lot of examples of DataViews. If we go to here, DataViews, we have here a lot of examples, and the repository I'm working on it actually contains these examples, but I think that is more clear from a plugin, because here there are some things specific to Storybook, and most of the times you cannot simply copy and paste this in your project. So I'm working on a repository where I think it's closer to the use of these components from a plugin. But yeah, here you can see that the data views, you can define actions, which are this delete item. This is an action for each one of the items. Then we can define a config. We can define the specific data list, like the items we want to display with the data views component. What else? Then we have a view, which is the object that represents the view, which includes the layout, but also the order, the filters, the page, the items per page, a lot of things. So every time we change any of these elements, we need to update this object. So with that, we get a view like this. And yeah, here you have a lot of examples. For example, one of the latest updates is this. Now we are able to group by a specific field. And also we can implement now, this is one of the new things that has been worked during the WordPress 6.9 cycle. This is now we can implement an infinite scroll with these data views. For example, here you can see, and then all items are loaded. Okay, let's continue reviewing the documentation. Okay, very important. I actually want to make a pull request to highlight this even more. Maybe convert this into a warning, because this is very important. If you're trying to use the DataViews component in a WordPress plugin or theme, and you're building your scripts using the WordPress scripts package, which is something I always do, you need to import the components from WordPress DataViews WP instead of WordPress DataViews. There's a reason, because this is to avoid conflicts between versions, because WordPress, bear with me 1 minute. Okay, bless me. So yeah, I was saying that if we don't do this, we can get some conflicts from WordPress. So if you want to use this component from a plugin, take this into account, and we will see that in the examples later. Okay, so usage. The DataViews component receives data and some other configuration to render the dataset. It will call the OnChange view callback every time the user has interacted with the dataset in some way: sorted, filtered, change, layout. Let's review this. Okay, so we have a data source that can come from anywhere: WordPress API endpoint, CSV. The consumer prepares data, fields, and view based on user interactions. So we need to provide to the DataViews component, we need to provide a data property, the list of items to be displayed. This list should be filtered and sorted by the consumer based on the view property. So this is something that we need to do before passing that to the component. Fields, data description, think of this as declaring each column of the dataset. And then the view, configures the view, how the data is displayed, table, grid, list, which filters are in place, how it's sorted, pagination, etc. And then OnChange view is actually the function that is triggered every time we change something. So every time we change something, we prepare we update these properties accordingly, and then we pass them again to the data views. This is a good diagram. So as you can see here, we have the component. We have to pass data, fields, and view. Optionally, we can add some actions, pagination info. Well, we need this if we want the pagination to work. Default layouts, but then very important, OnChange view. Every time we change anything in the layout, for example, here we can decide that, for example, we don't need the description, or that we want to hide the preview. No, we want to show the preview. We don't want to hide it. And that we want this to be ordered in a descending order. So every time I click in these things, the OnChange view callback is triggered, and every time the OnChange view callback is triggered, and it so it generates like a new data fields or view depending on the change that we have done, and those because we are in a React component, every time these elements are updated, the whole DataViews component is re-rendered. So this is how it works. So then we have some properties. We have an actions API, which is the way the different properties that we can use to define an action. So we will review this later. Then we have the fields API, which is the way we define like the columns of the DataViews. This is important because this fields API is shared by the DataViews and the DataForm component. And then we have the form field API, which is related to the DataForm, and we can review this later. I'm not 100% sure about how this works, so this is a good opportunity to review it. Okay. Now we can review the data. Okay, so the data is a one-dimensional array of objects. So we create an array of objects. This is the data. This is the items. The data can come from anywhere, from a static JSON to a dynamic source like an HTTP request. This is very powerful. I would really like to implement something like this. I have an example. I actually wrote a post in the developer blog. If we do DataViews, we have these two examples. I'm going to share them in the chat. This is article number 1, and this is the article number 2. So what I want to say is that in these articles of the developer blog, I explain how to create a project, like a plugin that implements the DataView component to display a list of data. And also, so the project is, there is a static source of data, like a JSON with a bunch of photographies that are displayed in the DataView. Let me show you, because I think we have a playground here available. Let me see. Somewhere here. Yeah, there's a live demo here. And the source of data is static, but it would be great if we could adapt this to be dynamic. So right now we have this, and we have different layouts, table, grid, and the idea of this project is that library is empty, but from this list of elements, this is we have pagination, but we can well, this is the first version where we display the data, but the second version is like an improved version of this first project. And in this second version, we added actions. So we have like the list of photographs, but then we can actually add those photos to the media library. So they are. I think I used that post the first time I get into DataViews. Hey. Yeah, well, happy that it was helpful. I'm actually thinking on writing a second another article that maybe more focus on the data form. So yeah, hopefully it's also useful. By the way, Alfredo, how did it go, your talk about Authabilities API? Or I think it was like more about a generic view of AI, right? It was in Guatemala, I think. Well, hope if it went well. It was awesome, yeah, like showing, yeah. Nice. Okay, like showing what WordPress has to offer. Is in WordPress TV, the talk? Let me see if I can find it. Today is the WordPress San Jose Contributor Day. So you must be busy. Nice. Yes, yeah, I can imagine. So WordPress San Jose. Okay, let's WordPress San Jose 2025. What is it? WordPress San Jose. I'm looking for the thank you. It's here. Yeah. So this is the WordPress, the WordCamp where Alfredo is right now, and this is the agenda. I see. So today is Contributor Day. Okay, nice. I'm going to be at WordCamp Valencia. WordCamp Valencia 2025 next weekend, actually. And I'm also going to lead one of the tables. Wow, 350 people. That's a lot. Congratulations. Yeah, Alfredo is saying in the chat that he's one of the lead organizers, and they sold out 350 people. That's a lot of people. Congratulations. Nice. So yeah, I will be at WordCamp Valencia next weekend, and I'm also going to lead one of the tables at Contributor Day. Which, by the way, Alfredo, now that I have you here, I have a tool for you. Let me see if I can find it, because it's a where is it? Let me see. It's a tool. Yeah, this tool. I'm going to share it in. Maybe you can give it a try. I have shared the tool in the chat. So this is an experimental tool created by Adam Adam is the mastermind behind Playground, and this tool is created with the goal of reducing the friction points of contributors. So for Contributor Day is a really cool tool to keep in mind. I want to propose it for Contributor Day at Work on Valencia, but yeah, have a look at it and give it a try. Let me know how it goes. The thing is very simple. You install this tool and you should be able to contribute to WordPress core without having Git, without having Node, without having npm installed, because this tool downloads the latest version of WordPress, launch a server, you can do changes, and through the tool you can actually create a div that you can attach to a track issue. So in theory, everything is provided by the tool, and in one of the last conversations I had with Adam about this tool, he told me that he was planning into expanding this tool to also allow contributions to Gutenberg. I don't know if he has done anything yet, but it's on the roadmap. So yeah, Alfredo, let me know how it goes, because if it goes well, I think that it can be prioritized and really make this a recommended tool in all the contributors day. Okay, let's continue with the data views. We were reviewing okay, so we have the data. Is the consumer's responsibility to query the data source appropriately and update the data set? This is important because we provide the data set, but it's our responsibility to actually update a data set every time we change. So this is an important concept. The data view on the data form is just like a tool to display data. It doesn't manipulate the data. We need to do that work in whatever form we provide the data. So if we provide the data from the REST API, every time we change filters, every time we change sorts or whatever, it's our responsibility to maybe do another request to get an updated version of that data list. If we are using static data, it's also our responsibility to manipulate the data. So this is an important idea. Each record should have an ID that identifies them uniquely. If they don't, the consumer should provide the getItemID property to DataViews, a function that returns a unique identifier for the record. So we have getItemID. Where are we? We are in data. We are in properties. We are checking the properties. Let me see. I have here I have here a plugin that is really useful because it provides me a table of contents from the headings. So that for me is really handy. So we are here. These are the properties that we pass to the data views component. We have the getItemID, a function that receives an item, returns a unique identifier. This is optional. The field will get a default implementation by DataViews that returns the value of the item ID. Okay. This is optional because if we provide an ID, we don't need this. But if we don't provide an ID field, we need to provide this function. Okay, get item level. A function that receives an item and returns its hierarchical level is optional, but this property must be passed for data views to display the hierarchical levels of the data view if view show levels is true. Okay, I haven't used this before, so I'm going to skip it for now. Fields. This is important. The fields describe, I think the most important ones are view, well, are the ones that are here in the example. In this example, here, the most important properties are data, fields, and view. Okay, so we were fields. The fields describe the visible items for each record in the dataset and how they behave, how to sort them, display them. See Fields API for a description of every property. So the fields is an array of objects that each object defines like each column of the table. And for each column that we want to display, we can define like a lot of things. Like for example, how do we want to render the value? If we want to allow that field to be filtered by, you want to enable sorting, and yeah, several things. All the properties we use to define each field is part of the Fields API. So we need to come here, and these are the properties we use to define each one of the columns. So if we go to here, for example, let me see. I'm going to show everything. So these properties, these are fields: template, preview, description, author. And for each field, we can set a few things. For example, template is locked, so we cannot really hide that, but the rest we can. So we have the fields, then we have the view. The view object configures how the dataset is visible to the user. Okay, so here we have different values. The type, which is table grid of list, like what we have here, table grid of list. We can provide like the three layouts available, but only one, only two, whatever we define here. And the type is the actual one. So every time we change this, we need to manually update this property. So the data views displays the data in a specific way. Then search, if there is a search item, every time we do a search, like for example here, this property will be updated, and we need to manually update the set of data. Then filters apply to the data set. So every time we apply a filter, for example here, author is any, is none, is any. So for example, if I add a template, or maybe I can duplicate here. Let me see. If I go to grid, and this is not the latest version. Let me see. This is the one. So we can try from Playground, we can try the beta that has been launched like a few days ago. So I'm going to apply settings and reset Playground because I want to try one of the new features. That is this one. Okay, go away. If we come here to appearance to the editor, and then here in templates, we can come to, so right now we can filter and by author, and right now we only have an author, which is the templates that are provided by the theme. But what we can do is duplicate. This is something new. We can duplicate. I'm going to duplicate, and I'm going to create my version. So now we should have two authors. Okay, because here single, let me see. Created templates 2025. But here this is a filter. Here we only have like the active template. So what we can do is come here, activate this one. I want to use my version, not the theme version. And now if we come here, we will have a mix of the templates provided by the theme, but my templates. And what we can do here is to filter and show only these ones. So coming back to the DataViews, every time I change this, I need to manually update the dataset. Per page, number of records to show per page. This is another configuration that can be done here. So every time I change this, I need to also update the view object. Page, the page that is visible. Again, every time that well, I don't have here more pages, but for example, I have in this example, every time I change this, I need to change the current page so the proper set of data is displayed. Sort, field direction. Again, every time I change this, we need to update the view object with that. Okay, this is interesting. Title field, media field, description field. Here we can define the fields that represents the title, image or description, and with that we can get a very cool view of the information of the item. We will see that in an example later. Show title, show media, show description. Okay, true by default, but we can put it to false. Show levels, whether to display the hierarchical levels for the data. Okay, I'm not going to enter into this. Group by field. We can group by field. The ID of the field used for grouping the dataset, supported by the grid and table layouts. And then we have fields. A list of remaining field ID that are visible in the UI. So every time I come here and I select if I want to hide or show, we will update the view component. Remember that we are here. We are here in the view component, and we need to pass that updated object to the DataViews. A layout config that is specific to a particular layout type. Okay. Okay. Then the OnChange view, very important. The callback executed when the view has changed. It receives the new view object as a parameter. So every time I do a change, every time I do a change, okay, let me see. The view is a representation of the visible state of the dataset. So the view represents the visible state of the dataset. What type of layout is used to display, how the dataset is filtered, how it is sorted or paginated. The consumer is responsible for using the view config to query the data provider and ensure the user decisions, sort, pagination, filter. This means that we need to actually order the data, set the view object with the proper information, like if it's stable, if it's agreed, we need to do that and then pass that information to the component. The following example shows how a view object is used to query the WordPress API via the entities abstraction. The same can be done with any other data provider. So we have a view, a default view, which is this object that represents how the data is going to be displayed in the DataViews component. And we have a default layout table, 5 elements per page, only one page. We need to actually calculate this if we get a list of items. The default sort by date and descendant, no search terms. The filters that are available or that are actually active, title field, the fields, and the layout. Okay. And then on change view, we use set view. So set view receives is this component. So set view receives the okay. So every time I change any of the elements of the data view, what happens is that this view state variable is updated. When this state variable is updated, we call this use memo function that actually cache the results for the same view object, and it generates like a whole new set of data, which include the filters and the okay, and I'm generating a new query args that this is really cool. So it generates a new query args, and this updated query args is the one we use to do the REST API request via the data layer. For those who doesn't know what the data layer is, I created a have actually I have here a WordPress data series. I'm going to share this where I went through a tutorial that uses a lot of the the selectors and the dispatchers provided by the WordPress data. So yeah, this is really cool. Okay. Then we have actions. With actions and the actions, they have an actions API to define each one of the actions. The actions API is this one. ID label is primary, icon is eligible, a callback. Then we have pagination info. All of these are properties that we need to pass to the data views. The pagination info, the total items, total pages, search, where the search is enabled, search label, what text to show with the search input, whether the data is loading. So we need to combine this with the rest of our logic. So if we are processing something, what we can do is to pass like a loading component here. I know it's a boolean, so it's just true or false. I guess that the component displays that React component internally. Default layouts. This property limits the available layouts and provides layout information about active view types. So here we can limit the available layouts. If it's empty, if empty, this enables all layout types. So if we do nothing, the 3 layout types will be available, but if we want to limit, we need to specify here the layouts we want to provide to the user. Selection, the list of selected items IDs. If selection and OnChange selection are provided, so if selection and OnChange selection are provided, the DataViews component behaves like a controlled component. Otherwise, it behaves like an uncontrolled component. Okay, I don't understand this exactly, but yeah, we can select. Actually, I think this is related to. Let me see here in DataViews. There is a DataViews picker. I think it's related to this. If we come here to the inspect, we can see that. Let me see. No. Listo. Yeah. But yeah, every time I select, I guess that something happens internally. So when I confirm, that selection is registered internally. OnChange selection is item clickable. Render item link. This is new. This is one of the new things, and this is a render function that we can use to render clickable items, and we can like wrap the links into other components, and maybe use some React components needed for a React router application. So it's really cool. Another React component that we can use for the display of the field. We are here, and these are the properties that we pass, remember, to the DataViews. The config with the configuration for the pagination. So this object contains the number of pages and the items per page, and then empty, which is a React component we can pass. We can pass if there are no results. Okay. Composition modes. The DataViews component supports 2 composition modes. Yeah, this is really cool because this is new. This is one of the new things. The DataViews component supports 2 composition modes. Control, this is the default usage mode. So DataViews renders a full layout out of the box. We don't need to worry about where is each one of the parts. What is the search box? What is the filter section? What is the view switcher? But then we have free composition. So there are available, all the subcomponents are available as children that we can use, and we can actually create or use or custom layout using these children. For example, here I think there's an example, free composition. Yeah. So here the things are ordered in a different way because it's using these children, these subcomponents. Where can I see the code here? me see. DataViews. Free composition here and show code. Oh. This is not clear at all. Free composition, DataViews, empty. So in theory, we should have here DataViews. It's only this. Okay. This doesn't seem like the code of this, because I think this is using. No, this doesn't seem. Let's check the code, because if we go to Gutenberg and we look for DataViews, and we go to the stories and DataViews story, and there is like a free composition here, custom composition example. Here. Yeah, it's using DataViews filters toggle, DataViews search, DataViews pagination, DataViews views config. So this is the example. Okay. Accessibility considerations. Okay. Then we have DataViews Picker, which is like a variant of the DataViews. The DataViews Picker component is very similar to the regular DataViews component, but it's optimized for selection of picking of items. So this is this. Okay. And then let's spend some more time with the DataForm. And I have here an example that maybe we can play with a little bit. Let me see. Where are you? Where are you? Cursor, DataForm example. Okay. Yes. So this example that I have here, I have actually let me see, localhost. It's well, let's check. WPM. I think it's already started, but let me check. Although I also have okay, no worries, because I have this also in WordPress Studio. So what I have here in WordPress Studio is if I go to WP Content plugins, yeah, this DataForm example is linked to my project. So what we can do is just check this component from here. And what I'm going to do is yeah, DataForm. Okay, nice. Okay, so what do we have here? We have here a very simple plugin. We have here a very simple plugin that registers a new menu option. So it registers a new menu option called DataForm example. For that page, it renders a specific page with an ID, which is this one, and it also enqueue a specific JavaScript file. This JavaScript file is generated with a build process that we can launch by doing npm run build or npm start. And remove this, for example, and what we can do here is npm start, so we can do changes here. And this build process, what it's going to do is going to take the index.js that is available in the src folder, which is this one, and it's going to generate the build version, which is this one. Okay. So this is a very simple data form. So the fields, this is the data. Yes. Title, author, order. This is the data. Then we have the fields, and these fields array is defined using the fields API. Using the fields API, which is this one. So it's the same API for the DataViews and for the DataForm. And then we have the form, which is an object with, I think this is the form fields API. Let me see. Form field API. Let me see. Form field API. So, okay, let's start with from the beginning. DataForm. So the main idea is we have DataViews to display data and DataForm to edit data. They share an API to define the fields, and that fields API for the DataViews will be used as the columns, as the definition of each item. And for the DataForm, it can be used also to a lot of things. For example, if we define a type, I think it generates some kind of internal validation for DataForm, and for DataViews, it automatically provides like sorting functions. Okay, anyway, let's review this. So data, a single item to be edited. It can be thought of as a single record coming from the data property of DataViews. Good. So it doesn't need to be. It can be totally separated or a mix of records if your app supports bulk editing. Nice, this is nice. So we are, where are we? We are here, DataForm. Fields. The fields describe which parts of the data are visible and how they behave, how to edit them, validate them. See Fields API for a description of every property. So this is shared by the DataViews component. And then we have form object. So we have the form. Okay, form. Layout and fields. So the form layout, an object describing the layout used to render the top level fields present in fields. See layout prop in form field API. So the layout. Okay, so here the data form will automatically display the elements without us needing to think about the specific layout, specific UI. So layout represents the type of layout used to render the field. It'll be one of regular, panel, card, or row. This prop is the same as the form layout prop. So for example, in here we have okay, so the form have layout and fields. So if layout is empty, a ver. If it's empty, I guess it's regular, type regular, require. This is per field. Let me see how does this work. So, okay, this is the layout. Per fields. Okay, form. An object describing the layout used to render the top level fields present in fields. See layout prop. Okay, and then fields, a list of fields ID that should be rendered. Fields ID can also be defined as an object and allow you to define a layout, position, or children. Okay, so we can define layout for all the fields, but then also for specific fields. So let's play with this a little bit. In our example here, what happens if I do this? Okay, so we have the layout panel. Then we have the regular. The regular. So we have panel, regular, then we have card. We have card. Nice. And then we have row. And then we have row. This is for all the fields. But then what I'm going to do, we have row, one row. But then what I'm going to do is we can define also, maybe I want to say the title. Okay, so the fields API, I need to say ID. Okay, so now I need to make this an array of objects with the string as the value of an ID property. Okay. I think this is the same. And we can do here, for example, panel side. But then what I can do here is for a specific ID, fields API, no, layout. For a specific, I can say layout regular. And layout panel. Well, panel no, because this is the one I'm using, so let's make it card. Yep. So we can have like a configuration by default for all the fields, but also for individual fields. Nice. So where were we? DataForm. Data fields, which is the fields API, and then the form. Layout, an object describing the layout used to render the top level fields present in fields, see layout prop, and then a list of fields that should be rendered. Fields IDs can also be defined as an object and allow you to define a layout, label position, or children if displaying combined fields. Then OnChange, a callback function that retrieves an object with the edits done by the user. So let's add an OnChange here. Well, in our case, the OnChange, we can just add here console log. So every time we change, we can see how the new value is received here and also here. So through this callback, we can actually update the data from the source of data. Validity. So validity. Okay, data views, I'm going to collapse this. Data view speaker, collapse this. Change. Validity, object that determines the validation status of each field. There's a use for validity hook that can be used to create the validity object. See the utility below. This section documents the validity object in case you want to create it by other means. The top level props of the validity object are the field IDs. So this is the ID. Fields declare their validity status for each of the validation rules supported. Required, elements, custom. If a rule is valid, it should not be present in the object. If a field is valid for all the rules, it should not be present in the object either. Each rule can have a type and a message. The message is the text to be displayed in the UI controls. The message for the required rule is optional. Okay, so let's see how this works. So this is really cool. Let's check. Okay, so this is the data, and then the fields we have. Children and children. Okay, so here name, phone, and email, which is what I name, phone, and email. This is the children, name, phone, and email. We have the ID, label, contact, and layout, label, position, top, type, panel. And this corresponds, ID, name, my phone corresponds to the ID of data. We can change. Okay, so we display only one, but when we click, we actually see all the fields. Okay, let's update our example with this. Data. Our data now is going to be this. Our fields now is going to be this. Our fields is going to be this. And our form now is going to be this. Our form is going to be this. Okay. So we have here the first one, so the fields, so we have fields and form. This is the children. Okay, so we have type card customer and why this is ID payments. And payments is not displayed. Okay, payments. Okay, these payments, I'm missing this. Let's look for this. Okay. No, the customer. I want to look for this. Here, under DataViews. Yeah, here. DataForm. So we have the field. Okay, so we have fields. We have name, phone, email, plan, I'm going to copy this. The fields. Okay, and now I need to import the batch from components. Okay, I think it's because of the batch. So I'm going to replace this with a paragraph and this with a paragraph. And get out. Okay, and now we have the payments. Okay, Alfredo, see you. Hope the contributor day is going well. And yeah, see you in another stream. Okay. So we have here. Well, the layout here is not really nice. I'm not sure. The customer. And this is the this is the form that we have a layout. Fields. Fields. Is this an array? Fields. And fields. We have fields. I know we have fields here. Yeah. No, this is already fine. Okay, let's review what we have here so far. We have the data. This is the information we want to edit. Then we have the fields, which describes each one of the data provided here in order to add validation. So I think that maybe if I add here, I don't know, there is no validation here at all, then maybe I can remove this, I can remove this, and I can remove this. There's no validation at all here. So maybe this is something that we can add. Let's see. Let's see if we can add this with the validity. And I'm going to check here validity. Okay. Isn't this something DataForm validity? Okay. And the validity with here use form validity. Okay. And what? So this is a hook, use form validity. Let's check what's this about. This is in utilities. Okay, hook to determine the form validation status. Item, the item being edited. Fields, the fields config as described in the fields property of DataViews. Form, the form config as described in the form property of DataViews. Returns an object containing is valid, a boolean indicating if the form is valid. Validity, an object containing the errors. Each property is a field ID containing a description of each error type. See validity prop for more info. Hook to determine the form validation status. So I guess that we can add here a validity, and what we can do here as well is to maybe is valid. So let's see if we can. Const validity is valid, use form validity, and we need to import this. Validity is what we are passing here, so this comes here, and then is valid. Maybe I can just say here okay, because post is not defined, and post is, what is post? Is data. So it's data. In my case, it's data. So this is data, this is fields, and this is form. Fields and form. Form is invalid. And what we can do is console log valid is valid. No, it's valid, it's true. But then it's false because in the first iteration it's true, but and the error is customer card, children, plan, elements. So the plan, where is the plan? Okay, in customer card here, the plan okay, and the plan basic, what? And define true. The form is valid. The form is valid because the plan needs to be one of these values, and I was actually assigning the basics. So for example, if I assign to here a value that is not one of these elements, then automatically the form is invalid, and I get here the error value must be one of the elements. Cool. Nice. Okay, let's continue. I'm going to this here. Let's continue checking the documentation. Actions API, form field API. Okay, so this is the API for the form property of DataForm, and this form property is this. We can pass a layout, which is like the default way of displaying these values for all the fields, but then we can also specify a layout for each one of the fields. And this is interesting because we have here customer, which is a card, ID customer card. This is just an ID because this doesn't represent any of the, it's like a way to wrap all this information. It's going to be a card with an ID with a label, which is customer, is collapsible true, so we can do this summary, plan summary. What is this? Summary? Plan summary? Plan summary. Summary, plan summary. And this is one of the fields. Summary plan summary. Let me see if I can add here. Ah, nice. So summary is what appears here when we collapse. So this is like the plan. Okay, so we have here, what we have here is we have here the first element of the fields is the subject, which represents this card with the summary is collapsible. This is the layout. This is just a wrapper. And plan summary is one of the fields defined. But this can correspond to one of the data or not. It can be just a field that we can use to then specify a specific render. Fields. So fields corresponds to the elements that we render, even when they are not part of the data here. Okay, so we have this card that has children, and these children are the plan, the shipping address, the billing address, and display payments. And display payments is a boolean. If we put this to false, this is not and as you can see, we need to update the data on our own. So here we just have access to the actions, to the events that are triggered when we click on the elements, but we need to update the data ourselves. So for example, if I do click here, somehow I would update this information here, and we would pass this to the element. We can actually do that. We can actually do that. So maybe what we can do is, okay, const update data, because indeed what we can do is const data, say data use state, and then we can do here import use state from element, and update data, update const what we can do here is what we get here is updated data, and what we can do here is something like this. See? No. Cannot access data before initialization. Yeah. Okay, so maybe what we can do is this. So this is the default value of data. And now, and everything. Nice. So what we are doing, because we are getting the element that has been changed, what we are doing is updating data with the original object, and then we are just updating the property that has changed. Nice. Okay. And then the validity, I want to see if I, for example, here, I want to avoid this to be removed, to be empty, because I need this value. So let's see here, required validity, here, title, required. Okay, object that determines the validation status of each field. Okay, object that determines the validation status of each field. There's a use form validity hook that can be used to create the validity object. See the utility below. This section documents the validity object in case you want to create it via other means. The top level props of the validity object are the field IDs. Fields declare the validity status for each of the validation rules supported. Required, elements, custom. And how do I apply these rules? Each rule can have a type and a message. Let me see. Validation. I'm console log undefined true. Data, fields, and form. I guess that somehow in the fields or in the form, I can, let me see, here it is. So in the fields API, we can define so object that contains the validation rules for the field. If a rule is not met, the console will be marked as invalid and a message will be displayed. So we can, okay, so it's an object. So an object that can have required, elements, and custom. So here, in the so it's the customer card, here contact, right? ID label we have is valid. Fields API is valid. ID label, we have ID label, layout, this is the fields API. Okay, this is something specific for the children. And then form field, and the form field can be ID layout. But this is only valid for the form field. But one thing that we can do is valid. So here is valid. Object that contains. So I'm going to required true theory. This is how undefined true. So it says is valid. Okay, let me create a custom. I just want to check. Undefined true. True means that it's valid. So this is not really working. Let's see if I can create a custom item and field. I'm going to return true because I just want to check. No. I was valid. But what I want to do is console log this. Okay. Now, in theory, every time I change this console log is valid contact. Because it's customer contact. Ah, no, because it's the name. So customer contact top. Okay, so this is going to be this. No, this is not working here. And if I do this and is valid required true, let's see what happens. Okay, what we can do is check the here required. Require Require true. Elements equal none. Okay, let's add this. Required. So required is true somewhere. Const required equal true. Required is passed here. Elements is not defined. Sync. Or a sync or none. Okay, what is this elements thing here? Wow. Elements. Okay. What is this? This. Okay. Object that determines the validation status of each field. There's a use form validity hook that can be used to create the validity object. See the utility below. This section documents the validity object in case you want to create it via other means. The top level props of the validity object are the field IDs. Okay, so I define a specific rule for each field, and then the validity is what I get with this hook. Returns an object with the ID of the field as the property name, and then an object containing the error and the rule that is related to that error. Okay, the top level props of the validity object are the field IDs. Fields declare their validity status for each of the validation rules supported, which can be required, elements, or custom. If a rule is valid, if a rule is valid, it should not be present if the object. If a field is valid for all the rules, it should not be present in the object either. Okay, each rule can have a type and a message. The message is the text to be displayed in the UI controls. The message for the required rule is optional, and the built-in browser message will be used if not provided. The type can be validating when the value is being validated, customizing rule, invalid when the value is invalid, or valid when the value. Note the valid status. This is useful for displaying a valid message when the field transition from invalid to valid. Okay, and then in the fields API, we have is valid. Okay, object that contains the validation rules for the field. If a rule is not met, the console will be marked as invalid and a message will be displayed. console log and console log data. So if I mark this as required true, and the name this the name is empty, but the validity is still true. So Boolean indicating whether the field is required or not, disabled by default. Elements, Boolean restricting selection to the provided list of elements only. Enabled by default. The array edit control uses it to restrict the input values as well. Custom, a function that validates a field's value. If the value is invalid, the function should return a string explaining why the value is invalid. Otherwise, the function must return null, not true. True null. True null. So true null. And I receive here an item and a field. Okay. This is not really... no. True and custom. No, this is not being executed. It's valid. And let's check the validation. Validation. So required. Please fill in this field. You know what? We are going to get this validation DataForm. The validation example is validation, this one. Okay. Show code. DataForm. So this is the data, Boolean true, categories, fields. Elements true. Required true. So for example, the password. The password or the email. Elements true, required true. Is valid. Name. Undefined true. Okay, so the rules are fine, I guess. But then the and the data, the fields. Okay, let's have a look at the validation validation. Okay, this is something that I need to data adapter component cost validation. Render validation component archetypes required. Elements. Okay. Validation text required, select required. Validation component. So here we have the items, custom text rule, and custom text rule, custom text rule. So we have ID, because I think I need to no. No, this is in the fields. This is in the fields. Okay, it was here. No. Fields. Is valid require true? So is valid required elements, type text, label text. Okay, these are the fields, all the fields, blah, blah. Post field form, validity, OnChange. In theory, this should work, but I'm not sure what's going on here. Maybe we can try this with other, for example, the email as well. The email as well. Let's see. Please fill in the field. but the validity is not working well because it says that the form is valid when it's not. Use form validity is valid Okay, in theory, every time I change the values, the data with the fields and the fields contains is valid, and the data contains the data. So, no, I don't know what's going on here, or what's the behavior expected. Submit is okay, so there are a lot of options that are checked. That are checked here. A boolean required. And is there any console here? No. Toggle required? No. Okay, let's review this again. And yeah, I think I'm going to end the stream, and I will check this with more calm. Okay, let's do a final review of what could be going on here. Custom text rule. Custom text rule. Okay, this is part of this validation component. This is the data we have. Text, post, set post. Make a sync. Okay, custom text rule, but these are the rules that are passed here, but in theory, see if it's required. Get elements. Okay, but this is okay, nice. And the fields. And the fields, I pass this text is valid required. In theory, I don't need anything else, just required. But the form has the fields here, and this is the key. In theory, this should return is valid as false because I'm passing the data and the fields. So let's do a final check. And after that, I'm going to end the session because it's enough. Enough for the Friday. Okay. Console log data, console log fields and form. Okay, fields. Okay, fields, name is valid, require, maybe it's because elements true, it's only this. And I'm going to add this to this and to this and to this. So true, no, shouldn't be true. Okay, and the field is properly marked, but this should not be true. Okay, don't know what is going on, but I will investigate this. But for now, I think it's enough. So yeah, that's been all. We've been checking today the DataForm and DataView here. These DataViews and DataForm, these are components, React components provided by WordPress, and they are used internally by WordPress core. For example, here, this is DataViews. And as you can see, we can use them in our own plugins. I'm working on this repository with a bunch of examples, but also I will upload to the streams repository this specific example that we have been working on today, like this one. And I will also share in the streams. But here, in case you don't know, here I compile all the information about the streams that I've been doing during this year. As you can see here, I'm switching every week, and one week I do the stream in Spanish and the other week I do it in English. So last week I did one about DataViews and DataForm in Spanish, so I will update this with the information, all the resources that we have used during the stream, the project, and yeah, any other information. So that's all for today. Hope you have a great weekend, and yeah, see you next week. Okay, bye.